Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this week's live stream. This week's going to be a little bit different because I'm going to share a little personal experience that happened to me. But at the same time, the reason why I'm going to share it is because it's a subject that very rarely is touched on. I think a lot of people ask a lot of questions, but we really don't focus on that when we talk about moving to Mexico. But before we start, I want to say that this next weekend, I will be there. My wife won't be able to be there, but I'll explain with the little situation I was talking about. Um, and I'm trying to pin this, but I pinned it in our featured post on my Facebook group. Hi, first of all, I'd say hello to Anna, Gringos Are Us, Stephanie, how's it going? Cindy, great to see you here. Blaine, as always, great to always see you guys here. But before we start, I think I pinned it right. I pinned it to the top of our Facebook group. Next Saturday, we're going to have a get together. The address will be announced this Wednesday because it's actually going to be at a courtyard in San Miguel de Allende. It's going to be on the event page. You can get there from my Facebook group and Retired Life in Mexico, No Bull. It'll be on the featured. It's an event page that Gringos Are Us, or go to the Gringos Are Us page on Facebook. They actually have the event up, and let us know if you're coming. So far, we have actually, let me see what we got here. I've got Mark going, but we have several people that'll be going. What it's going to be from 3 to 6. And we're going to everybody meet. And at 6:00, if you guys want to go to dinner, whatever, everybody can continue from there. So basically, just to remind you guys that is happening next Saturday. I will be there. My wife won't be able to make it because I'm going to go into what happened to us this last week. And shout out to John. Oh, and my beautiful wife's in the house. Dying to Retire podcast, coming from Maryland. Great to see you. And also Gringos Are Us, and just made a comment. They're also going to announce the address on their live stream, on Gringos Are Us live streams. Actually, if you could post a link, Gringos Are Us, and the Facebook page too, if they want to check out the live stream, like I usually do on my Facebook, you can, I think on the content page, you can grab the link. Hey, Junior, I got it right? Joan Walker, Junior, how's it going? Great to see you. So basically this week, I'm kind of lucky that I'm able to do this live stream, but I thought it was very important because even living here for 6 or 7 years, also dealing with the medical system, having had cancer, having been treated, I hadn't really dealt with any kind of medical emergencies here in San Miguel de Allende. And one of the things that I started to contemplate when we were talking about what happened to me this week is I started to contemplate that we don't talk enough about medical care. And a lot of us move here, me included, at an older age when we retire. I retired early. I was fortunate enough to retire early, but I'm starting to get into the into that age of I'm going to turn 60 next month, but I mean this year, not next month, in October. But I'm going to turn 60 this year, and these are the times when you start having little issues here and there, all the way up to big issues. And I'm going to share a big issue that we had. And I think it's important that we really understand the healthcare system here in Mexico, because especially if there's an emergency, which hit us, you really need to know what to you really need to know what you need to do and how the system works. Okay. John, I'm not sure if I said hello, but hello. But one of the things is that sometimes we have two medical systems here, but I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to walk you through what happened to us and our visit to the emergency room. And this will give you a good idea of how a private hospital works here in San Miguel and anywhere in Mexico. We have two systems here in Mexico. You have the public healthcare system and the private healthcare system. There's some catches to the public healthcare system. You can utilize it, but there's some catches. And there's also the private healthcare system. First, I would like to start off by saying that every experience I've ever had with the Mexican healthcare system, private healthcare system, is bar none better than anything I've ever experienced in the United States. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be sitting here today talking to you if it wouldn't have been for the Mexican healthcare system. The Mexican healthcare system actually was able to diagnose me with cancer, while the U.S. healthcare system still had me waiting for pre-approvals to see if I could even take the test to see if I had cancer. So, and this was months. Okay, I finally came to Mexico and got it done. And so I will say that the healthcare system here is very far superior. But there's a catch to the healthcare system here. And I'm not here to scare anybody. I'm not here to say, hey, it's not doable. But you need to know the nuances of the healthcare system, because some people are on Medicare, for example. I know I've talked about this. There's a guy by the name of Covey that Rick Joyce was gracious enough to introduce me to. I haven't had a chance. He introduced me sort of around November when all my guests have been coming, so I haven't had a chance to have him on the channel. But I do want to get him on. There are some solutions for people that are on Medicare, but it's not a total solution. And I also know that people come here. There's that they can get on the public healthcare system, but then there's some catches to that. And then the third option, which is the private healthcare system, you either have insurance or you pay out of pocket. But I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by paying out of pocket, so that you can understand that maybe you need to prepare with a little bit of extra money, maybe a foreign insurance policy, an expat insurance policy if you can't get insurance here in Mexico, or maybe a medical evacuation policy. I don't know too much about those policies, but and Bruno, how's it going? But this is something that's very important that you know that exists. And that way you don't get frustrated, especially in an emergency situation. And I'm going to be touching on emergency situations because if you don't really know how it works or how the insurance works here, oh, hey, the best is in Mexico. Great to see you here. If you don't know how the medical system or the insurance, this could cost you precious time like it should. Let me put it this way. It would have cost me precious time if I wouldn't have kind of already knew what was going on. But basically, we woke up earlier this week. My mother-in-law had a very extreme headache, and she was not very, very confused. So I went ahead and I asked her some questions. I have experience with people having strokes before, so I kind of know what the emergency services ask. So I kind of asked my mother-in-law these questions. I kind of did a couple of quick tests. There's a couple of tests to see if they still have mobility. And I determined that she was possibly having a stroke. So we rushed to the hospital, MAC private hospital here in San Miguel. It's a small hospital, but awesome service. We've always had excellent service there. And we went to the emergency room. And they took her right away. They'll take you right away because it's an emergency room. And her blood pressure was out the roof. And so they needed to stabilize her blood pressure. They did do a thermographic scan of her brain. And the only problem is the medication for stroke you have to do it within the first 4 hours of the episode. And we didn't know when the episode happened. When the thermographic scan came back, it looked like the stroke had already been for a while. So the doctor chose not to give the treatment. The treatment for a stroke normally is a special medication that thins your blood and also tries to get rid of blood clots. The only problem with that medication is if you're not careful or you take it at the wrong time or you're not a candidate for it, in the sense that maybe you're not a candidate because for a different health reason, you could end up internally bleeding and it could be worse than the stroke. So basically, there's nothing the doctors can do other than lower her blood pressure, control her blood pressure, which they were able to kind of do. We're still in a position, I'm still going to the hospital. She's in what they call intermediate care. It's not intensive care, but it is 24/7 monitoring. It's kind of an intensive care, but they don't have all the tubes and everything. But it's a form of intensive care. She's still there. They haven't been able to control her blood pressure, and so they have her in that position until they can. She's probably gonna, once they get the blood pressure under control with oral medication, they're controlling it with IV. But once they get her blood pressure under control, they're going to send her to a normal room. So we're looking about probably a week hospital stay. So what we did after she was admitted, of course, we gave all the financial information. My in-laws have private insurance. And I'm going to start off by explaining to you how private insurance works. I think some people have already made some comments about it. But private insurance has a deductible. But the deductible is not like in the United States. Like I have a U.S. policy that it's $700 a year, and everything for the first $700 goes to the deductible. The way Mexican insurance works is it's per incident. So my in-laws had a 50,000 peso deductible, okay? And they had what they called a 35,000 coinsurance, okay? That's what you would pay out of pocket. You would pay the $50,000 deductible, and they cover, you pay 10% up to a maximum of 30,000, 35,000. So technically, and there are certain things the insurance doesn't cover. For example, unlike in the U.S. hospital, they say, hey, give them a Tylenol. That's a $50 Tylenol, and they put it on the bill. Here, if they give you a Tylenol, bed sheets, all of that stuff is not covered by the insurance. So you end up having to pay that on top of the 10% and the 50,000. Okay. So minimum, my mother-in-law's minimum pay, if it goes over, if it's less than the 50,000, yes, but the minimum that they're going to pay, probably more than likely, is $85,000 pesos, not dollars, 85,000 pesos. That's the minimum. There might be another 5,000, 4,000, whatever, in miscellaneous stuff that the insurance doesn't cover. So what does the hospital do? The hospital says, you need to leave a deposit. So I had to leave 100,000 peso deposit. So what you're looking at, if you look at 100,000 pesos, that would be, right now at today's exchange rate, let me look it up. I know we could go 20 to 1, but I'm going to go at the real exchange rate. $4,800, about $4,000, okay, or $5,000. So you're looking at $5,000 deposit just to get in it. Now, if I wouldn't have been able to pay that $5,000, sorry, we can't treat you. That's the way it works. If you can't pay the deposit, the treatment discontinues. Now, they will treat you right away and everything else and get you stable, but because that there's situations where, car accident, they have to get you stable. Okay. But if you don't leave that deposit, now here's the thing with the deposit, even if you don't have insurance, they're going to say, okay, well, in your condition, more than likely you're going to stay in the hospital so many days, blah, blah, blah. We need a deposit for you to, even if you're going to pay out of pocket. Okay. So one of the things that I always suggest, I had to put it on a credit card because we didn't have $5,000 right then and there, is always keep some type of credit card open that you are able to pay. Now, here's the thing. I estimate, and I'll probably come back with the final price and how many days she stayed in the hospital, how many days in intensive care. I will tell you the cost is probably not even a third, not even a quarter of the cost that it would cost in the United States. So you're ahead. Okay, when you're talking about medical care here, it's probably a quarter of the cost. But when you talk about a major situation, heart attack, those things, yeah, it'll cost you several $100,000 in the United States to get operated on, and maybe only $10,000 here in Mexico. But you got to remember, you're still paying $10,000, and $10,000 is a lot of money for some people. So what we do, we have a credit card. I have a U.S. policy. I have a Mexican policy, just in case of emergency, so we don't have to. And we're able to pay that deposit. Always remember that you may have to pay a deposit. Okay, so we'll have to figure out. And also, if you have traveler's insurance, if you have expat insurance, if you have emergency evacuation insurance, you're still going to have to come up with something out of pocket, if that makes sense. Okay. And even some of these expat insurances, they're all or my U.S. insurance. I have a federal benefits plan that covers me, and I have to come up with the money up front in order to do everything. Okay, so I had to come up with the money up front, and then I submit the claim and get the money back. But how do you pay when you get to the hospital? That's what you need to always remember. Always have that backup plan. Unfortunately, my in-laws, I had to come up with the money because they don't have 100,000 pesos in the bank. So we were lucky. We caught it in time. The only thing my mother-in-law is suffering from is memory loss, but she didn't have any damage as far as, her extremities. She can still move and everything else. So, just make sure, yes, get covered. This Medicare Advantage, their Lakeside Medical, I think it's called. They'll do your Medicare. Medicare, they can, if you get a certain advantage plan, they'll cover you, but it's for emergencies only. But just remember having extra money on a credit card, on some type, or what we're going to do, because eventually we might have to do it. What we might do is start putting money aside, like have 500,000 pesos in a bank account, Mexican bank account, that we can access right away if we need to pay that deposit, other than having to, because even with me, putting it on a credit card takes a couple, and now here's the thing, it takes a couple of months for my claim to get reimbursed, so I'm paying interest on that money. But I mean, I recoup most of it, and out of pocket is hardly anything when I end up paying for it. But it's still money out of pocket. It's still money that interferes with your cash flow. So the thing that you have to remember is always have that something to be able to get. You don't want to end up in a situation where I don't have no money, I don't have anything. I'm sorry, we can't treat you. And I'm serious. That's the difference between the U.S. hospital and a Mexican private hospital. You can't pay? Sorry. And now here's the thing that'll happen with my in-laws. Let's say the bill comes out to 200,000 pesos. Okay, I'm just using round numbers, but let's say it comes out to 200. Let's say it comes out to $10,000. Okay, um, a little bit less with the exchange rate, but let's say it comes out to 200,000 pesos. My in-laws are on the hook for 85,000 pesos plus whatever incidental expenses. Let's say it's 5,000 pesos more. So they're in it for 90,000 pesos. Okay, let's just say. And the rest of it's paid by the insurance to the hospital. Now, let's say I left a deposit for 100,000 pesos, but it's 90,000 pesos that's not reimbursable. They will refund the 10,000 pesos. Now, sometimes the deposit is very high and higher than what you'll end up spending. Sometimes it's lower. Each hospital has its numbers. For example, they had a chart when they gave us how much we needed to leave for a deposit. You know, they said 50,000 for intensive care, so much for, and basically you're guaranteeing that you're going to walk out fully paid. That's basically the way it works. Now, I do know some U.S. insurances will try to work with a hospital. If you have a U.S. insurance and you're traveling and you get in and I also, when I was living in Brazil, they said, we'll work with your hospital, but it's not guaranteed. The hospital here in Mexico does not have to accept, if they say, we don't want to accept your money from the insurance company in the United States, you're kind of out of luck. So just make sure. And that's why I wanted to bring this up tonight, because a lot of times we don't understand the healthcare policy. And I'll go into, if you want to ask questions about the private healthcare system versus the public, IMSS, all of that stuff, I'm willing to answer what my personal experience is with my own medical care. But I think we really need to look at this, because a lot of people, they run real quick to Mexico because they can't afford to live in their home country, thinking I'm going to get away living cheaper. But then they don't think about these ancillary things such as medical care, stuff like that. So we really need to keep at this subject. And I think I need to touch on it more. I have, but the problem is it's a little bit confusing. So that's why I thought I'd bring this up, from being in that situation myself. So I think that's my point, and I'm going to get to comments now. And I think I'm going to go way back because people are making comments, but I thought I wanted to stay on this role of how it works so that everybody would understand. And then we'll go into here what's going on. Let me see. Yeah, agreeing with us. Even with insurance, what I was saying, even with insurance, you're expected to pay up front. Then you deal with the insurance company to get reimbursed. Yes, if you have a Mexican policy, you start with the insurance process right away. I had to give the insurance information to the hospital. The hospital coordinates with the insurance company. Now, here's the thing. I have an insurance policy that's in the U.S. They don't work with my insurance company. They don't do. So it's a separate process. But if you have Mexican insurance, health insurance, and we're going to go into some of the catches on getting Mexican health insurance, how much I pay for Mexican health insurance, how I was able to get health insurance even though I had a pre-existing condition. And I'm going to touch on IMSS because there's a big misconception. One of the things I was looking on Facebook was people saying, can I get into IMSS? And everybody, yeah, you can, for if you pay this much a year, blah, blah, blah. But nobody mentioned that if you're taking even cholesterol pills, IMSS won't take you. They won't accept you. You have to go through a full physical exam. If you have any pre-existing conditions or you take any medications, IMSS is not an option. I'm telling you right now. And it's very cheap. The other disadvantage of IMSS is you get assigned a public clinic. You have to go to that clinic and you have to wait. I mean, I'm not saying that the public healthcare system isn't good. Actually, the public healthcare system probably one of the best healthcare systems in the world, because the doctors are very well educated and some of the best, well renowned. There are a lot of doctors that practice public healthcare also have private practices. So some of the most well renowned surgeons, some of the best brain surgeons and everything here in Mexico, they also practice in the public healthcare system. So they also do public healthcare also. So it's not the quality of the doctors, it's just the system that may not be. Perfect example, my father-in-law is on IMSS. He's on Social Security, what they call Seguro Social, IMSS. And sometimes he goes in, they have half of his medicines available. They give him a 6-month supply. The other half he has to go pay for. So, I mean, it's not a foolproof system. It's not this system of free healthcare like a lot of people think. And there is a free option, free, but it's so restricted. It's meant for the poor, underprivileged people, and it pretty much doesn't cover anything. So that's where we're at. So, you know, you need to understand this about the healthcare system. Now, if you have money squirreled away for an emergency, that's great. We do. This is not something that should prevent you from moving to Mexico, but it's something that shouldn't catch you off guard, especially if you're older, especially if you have different health conditions. I will say that my cancer treatment was way less than a quarter of what it would have cost in the United States. My insurance company was happy paying the bill. Let me put it that way, because they weren't paying much compared to now. Was it still a lot of money? Yes, it was. That was 6 or 7 years ago. It's probably gone up, but it was several $100,000. It was several $1,000. It was close to $10,000 or $15,000 for my treatment. But this is a treatment in the United States that would have cost me probably, or cost the insurance company probably, no, I would say $100,000 to $200,000. So just keep that in mind. And also out of pocket, I probably would have been out of pocket. Well, I guess my maximum catastrophic was 12,000. I would have been 12,000 out of pocket. And out of pocket after reimbursement in Mexico, I was only out $2,500. So there is a big difference in medical care here. It is cheaper here. It is less expensive. But like I said, for some of us, $10,000 is a lot of money. For even me that has a comfortable pension, $10,000 is a lot of money. So you have to take it in stride. Now, maybe if I didn't have insurance in the U.S., $10,000 is better paying $10,000 than $100,000. So yeah, there's a difference there. And that's what people, they brag about. Oh, healthcare's so cheap down there. Yeah, it is. It really is. If you want to go to the doctor, you need to get an injection. You need to get it. It's $5, $3, $20. You got a cold, you go to a doctor, and it's, and my regular, actually, I have a copay on my insurance, and some of my doctor's consults don't even make the copay. In other words, so I end up paying $20, $30 out of pocket. I have a heart condition. I paid $300 for a test in the United States that runs $4,000. So those little things, just like a stress test that I paid $300 for, and probably in San Miguel, being that it's San Miguel and there's a lot of foreigners, I probably paid a little bit more than what the normal price here in Mexico is. But my last stress test cost me $300. I would have never been, actually, what the insurance doesn't cover in the United States would have been my $300. I would have still paid, even being covered with insurance in the United States. So yes, healthcare's cheaper. Yes, doing routine things like, hey, I need to do even $300. Somebody living here on Social Security on a fixed income, $300 is a lot. So you really need to have that little, even if it's a little nest egg of $1,000 saved away to the side so that you can get that stress test, so that you can afford to get certain things, and always keep maybe a little medical savings here. Um, John, we have a catastrophic care policy that would cover us in dire circumstances, such as a bad accident or severe health issue. The deductible is 10,000, but coverage is 100% after that. Awesome. And actually, I have a good friend of mine that has a policy, expat policy, uh, kind of a catastrophic care insurance, and his deductible is $10,000. Um, but like I said, you just need to have that preparation. uh, oh, hey, the best is that your YouTube channel, guys? I'm just seeing this here. Um, and they the best is in Mexico. I'm gonna have to look it up, and you got a subscriber. You have a subscriber, and you know what? Best thing you guys could ever do is start a YouTube channel. The more we have sharing our experiences, the better. As a matter of fact, in my Facebook group, with the exception of advertising, uh, with the exception of all of that, I actually allow people to post their videos. I encourage it. And it's probably the best thing. And you know what's really great? And I'll tell you what, uh, Lisa and Terry as your name, your husband name, right? Uh, I'll tell you guys what, uh, it's kind of we even use Facebook kind of like a chronicle of our adventures. And that way we can always go back. Uh huh. And we can always go back and we can see that, uh, we can always go back and see what we were doing back then. And I even look at my old videos when I first started and and it's kind of cool, the journey that I've gone through. So I really encourage people to do that. Best wishes and full recovery for uh, great care. And we have great care. We have an internist that's taking care of my mother-in-law. As a matter of fact, we just found out that this internist is probably one of the best doctors here in San Miguel. So she's got the best medical care, and she's a very good doctor. Haven't had any issues with any of the hospital. The hospital is a small hospital, and you might think, oh, well, it's just small. No, but it's very decently well equipped. If here in San Miguel, if we really need to go to a major trauma center, there's Querétaro's real close. So John Gringos, do you have glorified travelers insurance that does the same thing for us? We pay $250 when Junior broke her arm in Rivera Maya. Yeah, and you also, because you're going to say right now, so much easier. The bill was $5,000 with surgery and everything. We got almost all of it back. The one thing to stress from Gringos or Us is what I was saying. They had to pay that $5,000 upfront, and the insurance will reimburse you. Most expat policy, when you see expat insurance, most of those insurance policies, for example, my friend's insurance policy is through Aetna. Yeah, they'll cover you overseas and stuff. But one thing that you're going to have to remember is just through reimbursement. So always have that money to be able to get reimbursed. Hi, Ernie, at all. Can you pay with a credit card if something serious happened? Because obviously you won't be running the ATM if you are laying in the hospital. Yes, Tom, I paid with a credit card. I paid my cancer treatment with a credit card. Actually, I paid my cancer treatment up front. I paid now. This particular incident, yes, I paid with a credit card. The deposit was with a credit card. I have had surgery before. You pay the deposit to the hospital with a credit card. So uh, you can pay with a credit card. And Gringos Are Us, they use Safety Wing. That's one of the traveler's insurance. and John uses Cigna Global. So Cigna is very well known in the United States, and I use Aetna here. It's a U.S. insurance company, and my believe it or not, my Mexican insurance policy, which I pay about $400 or $500 a month, that policy is by a group called Seguros Monterrey, but it's owned by New York Life. So I really basically have New York Life insurance here. Uh, and if anybody wants to know how it works, I'm going to go into that. Um, Anna, what are the signs of a stroke? Many times, Anna, the signs of a stroke are that one of the signs of a stroke is usually a person is very disoriented. You can have dizzy spells. The other thing is, for example, when I said I gave a couple of exams, usually you want to ask a person, what's your name? Do you know your name? Usually if they can't respond, it's because of what's happening in the head with the stroke, that it might be attacking certain parts that they can't remember. Slurred speech. My dad had a stroke and he was just talking funny. He knew what he wanted to say, help me, but it was coming out. Blah, 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 blah. And even though in his brain or in his mind, he was saying, help me, it wasn't coming out as help me. So that's what, one of the signs. The other thing is you tell them to raise their arms, squeeze your finger. If they don't have any strength when they're squeezing your finger. Now, my mother-in-law didn't have a lot of the symptoms, but what happened was, like, for example, she wasn't talking like blah, 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 blah. She was talking, she was speaking, her head hurt when you talk to the person. But when I was talking to her, I said, do you know where you're at? And she was pausing. She was having a hard time getting the stuff out. So that's really basically the signs of having a stroke. So like, for example, when I'd ask her, what's your date of birth? When were you born? Hold on. October 15th, 1934. Because what do we do on our date of birth? Right now, if someone asks you, my date of birth is 1/1/2005, because you use it all the time, right? Your date of birth is something that everybody asks you. So you ask questions such as, what's your name? What's your date of birth? Anybody that has a problem coming out with their date of birth, if someone comes out with their date of birth like, hold on. October 15th, then you know that they're having a hard time processing it in their brain. And usually a stroke, it's either a hemorrhage in the brain or it's a blood clot that's gone to the brain. So that's why it affects your speech. It may affect the fact that they can't walk, all of that stuff. So user, we have a 10-year-old accident policy from Chesapeake. Nothing policies you need to be in the U.S., but when we called, of course, they said no. And actually, user FK, whatever, that is something that I always advise with using U.S. insurance policies. Like my insurance policy covers overseas, okay? And certain insurance policies don't. I'm a retired federal employee, so I have access to the federal employee insurance. I had Blue Cross Blue Shield before. Same thing, they covered me overseas. But not all insurance policies will cover you overseas. That's why I always tell people, don't assume your U.S. insurance policy will cover you overseas. You need to call before you move over here, because you may not even, especially if you're going to move over here full time, you may be better off not paying the premium, and getting a Mexican or finding an alternative. So it's what you experience, user, is very much what I advise people to do is to check and some insurance policies, if you're overseas, it's an emergency, they'll cover it, just like Medicare will cover it. But from what I understand with Medicare, it's a pain to even have them say, okay, we'll classify you as an emergency. Thanks a lot, Junior, for and it's she's not out of the water yet. The problem that we have right now because of her blood pressure is that we don't know the extent of the damage because the brain was swollen, so we don't know. For example, she'll get her memory back. Also, the doctor said that there's still some risk involved that she could get more, but it is good that it wasn't serious. That she I do have family members. My mother was bedridden because of multiple strokes, couldn't move, uh, couldn't walk. So I know from personal experience that it could have been a lot worse. The other nice thing, not nice thing, but the lucky thing was that they were here visiting us because can you imagine? And my mother-in-law just thought, I got a bad headache. I got a bad headache. And my father-in-law didn't. He was like, okay, let me get you some aspirin. And, I mean, and she was, let me take some Tylenol and I'll be fine. If she would have waited, the doctors told us probably another hour or two, she probably wouldn't be here today. So luckily, that was the good thing, that we were very, very fortunate that she was here visiting, actually. Yeah, Gringos R Us, you have a good point. You can pay yourself into a savings account monthly, then have the funds there for the reason. And actually, Gringos R Us, that's what we're planning to do, even with insurance, especially with high deductibles, possibly having to come up with the money up front. Uh, that's what we're doing. We want to do. Uh, and that way I don't have to keep a credit card. I don't have to worry about whether I'm using it. And if I'm not using it, they close it down. Uh, there have been people have had issues if they find out you're in Mexico. U.S. credit card companies a lot of times they'll cancel your card. Uh, Luckily, I have a good support system in the U.S. where I have an address and everything. So those are the things that always tuck that away. Like I said, even if it's just for the down payment for your insurance. Although I always have 10K tucked in my sock. Who doesn't? LOL. Even though I know how great and affordable healthcare in Mexico, sometimes we might just have to jump on a flight. Yeah, Tom, actually, there's a lot of people that use Medicare and Medicaid. And what they do, okay, I have a heart condition. Once a year, I'm going back to visit my family. I'm going to get all my tests done. And if there's an emergency, hopefully Medicare will cover me, even though I've heard horror stories. And that's one of the things that they do. They just fly back. Oh, I have to have a knee surgery. Okay, I'll schedule it. I'll go back and visit my family and have my knee surgery. So people make it work. Okay. But even if you make it work, just remember, for example, even on Medicare, okay, I go back and get my heart surgeries and my stuff and what some people do is they'll even down here, since it's inexpensive enough, like for example, for me to get a stress test, I can afford $300. I'm going to get my stress test. But if I need an operation, if the doctor says you need to get operated on, you get on the plane and you go back home, visit family and get your stuff done. And people do that. But there's always that, look at what happened to us. My mother-in-law was perfectly fine the night before. And this happened. So, you know, uh, you always have to have that ready. And actually, Blaine, you're right. The face drooping, also arm weakness. That's why you tell them to raise their arms. The face drooping, there are types of strokes called Bell's palsy and stuff like that that do it's a paralyzation of the face. Um, but exactly what Blaine was saying, speech difficulty, like you sound drunk. having hard time, confusion. My mother-in-law was very confused. What's going on? Vision impairment. My mother-in-law has some. She didn't have any at the time that we took her to the hospital, but at the part of the brain that it affected, she's got a little bit of a problem. And the headache, we found out, was from the high blood pressure and the swelling on the brain. So uh, and it's caused also by the bleeding in the brain. Tom, let's see here. John's got a suggestion here. For those of you with emergency evacuation bag to go back to USA or Canada, for example, you have to be stable, healthy enough to travel. So there could be quite a lot of out of pocket costs before that. And actually, John, I'm glad you brought that up. There's a lot of people that have these evacuation policies. Now, the evacuation policies, from what I understand, they will cover to stabilize you. But we're back to that initial problem, John, exactly what you're saying. Your out of pocket expenses at the time, if you need to get into the hospital to get stabilized so that they can move you, then you're going to have to come up with that deposit. Now, if you're now I know a lot of people ask me this question. If let's say you're unconscious, they don't know your insurance company. The hospital will treat you to a certain point, but when a family member comes, where's our $10,000 deposit? When you wake up, hey, how are you going to pay for this? So you're correct, John. Your out of pocket expenses to get stabilized, even though you might get your money back. Okay, this is my biggest point. A lot of these expat insurances are by reimbursement. My insurance, my U.S. policy is by reimbursement. My in-laws, and I also have a Mexican policy, and I have a much higher deductible. I have an 80,000 peso deductible. And the reason why is because I use my U.S. insurance, but I only use my Mexican insurance if I need it. Like I have a heart attack and we have enough money on a credit card to put the deposit down and pay the $80,000, $4,000 or whatever upfront. So, I mean, if I'm really going to die, $4,000 is, instead of using my U.S. policy where I pay less. The other thing about Mexican insurance that I'm going to tell you, for example, some of you might be kind of shocked because my mother-in-law had to pay. Well, we're going to have to pay almost 100,000 pesos. I left a deposit of 100,000, but if you look at miscellaneous plus the co-insurance plus the deductible, we're looking at 90,000 pesos, right? Now, once you pay that deductible, anything related to that condition is covered. So let's say let's say she comes back home, has to go back to the emergency room because she gets another stroke. That 50,000 peso deductible is no longer an issue. Her rehabilitation treatments, all of that related to that incident. Let's say in 5 years, she gets something related to that incident. She's covered at 100%. Okay, so once she meets that deductible and that coinsurance, you're covered at 100%. So, for example, if I get a heart attack tomorrow, I use my Mexican insurance, a heart attack. Let's just say it's a simple heart attack. Okay, and I go into the emergency room. I don't know. They put a stent in me and I'm fine. Okay, I have to pay that 80,000 plus my coinsurance. Well, I don't think I have a coinsurance, but I have 80,000. I have to come up with that 80,000. But let's say in 5 years or 4 years or 3 years or 2 years, I get I need a valve replacement. I no longer have to pay that 80,000 pesos. But let's say tomorrow I get in a car accident, has nothing to do with my heart. I have to pay the 80,000 pesos. So The deductible is per condition, per incident. For example, also, let's say I had a stroke and it was related to a bad heart. So now I'm covered for a stroke because I paid the deductible, and I'm covered for my heart as long as it's related, if that makes sense. So, and also, Cindy, you have a great point, because after a certain age, you can't get health insurance. Actually, my insurance company. Now, here's the thing: if you get in before your age, before you, uh, if you get in before, like my insurance company is 62. I think there's several that are saying that they'll take up to 67, but mine's 62. If now that I have insurance before 62, after 62, I will keep, I can keep my insurance. The only deal is it goes up as you age. So my insurance is increasing every year as I age. My in-laws insurance is all the way up to, I don't remember, almost $1,000. They pay $1,000 a month just for my mother-in-law. And what they were paying probably $300 or $400 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So it does exponentially go up. There's another, depending, don't, also another thing about getting Mexican health insurance is don't assume it's going to be $500 the rest of your life. Yes, and U.S. insurance goes up too, but this goes up with age regardless. Okay, so there might come a point where you're already priced out. Let's say you started paying $300. I think I started paying $200 a month, and now I'm already up to $500. Okay, in a period of 10 years, and maybe when I turn 80, I'll be up to $1,000 a month. So I might end up getting priced out of being able to have Mexican healthcare insurance. The other catch with healthcare insurance is if you have pre-existing conditions, it's the same as IMSS. Now, they will make exceptions. Like, for example, with my wife, when we first signed up for the insurance policy, because she's female, if you have any female issues within the first year or two, I think there was a waiting period of 2 years before she could get covered by female issues. The fact that I had cancer, I had to go through all sorts of doctor certifications that I was fine. I no longer have I was in remission or no longer have cancer, and anything related to cancer, they will not cover me. And also you may end up paying a higher premium, but that's one thing to take into consideration. Uh, Stephanie, a few years ago, Luis and his brother were in a car accident. After 3 surgeries, his brother lost his leg. We had to pay the entire hospital before they would release him. That happens here, Stephanie. You went to ER Mac last year, received great care. I'm glad to hear your mother is doing. Thank you, Stephanie. And actually, we've gone to Mac on a couple occasions. We've had 1 or 2 emergency situations. Actually, the last emergency room situation, my wife cut her finger, but it was pretty bad. And we went over there. Literally, the bill, if we would have gone to a U.S. emergency room for the care, cutting her finger, we would have probably paid several $1,000s. And here it was like $100. I mean, literally, it's very inexpensive. So everyday care, let me put it this way, everyday care, and even here's the thing that I want to tread lightly on saying this, because everyday care for me, going to the doctor, having a consult for $10, $20, not a big deal, okay? But as we get older, we end up having five specialists, right? So let's say we pay $30 a specialist and you 5, then you're starting to run into 30, 30, 30, 35 times, right? So you got $150 just for that 1 week of doctor's appointments. That can start, if you're on a fixed income, $150 could be a lot of money. If you're on a good pension or you're on your $4,000 a month that they require you to have here in Mexico, then maybe $150 is not a lot of money. Well, I mean, relatively, okay? I'm talking about relatively. I mean, $150 is $150. It can be considered a lot of money for anybody. I mean, anytime I want to plop down $150, that's a lot of money. But what I'm trying to say is you need to look at your situation, because some people come here so strapped on a limited budget that $150 could mean the difference between you eating or not, or your groceries for the month. Okay. So we really need to plan all of this stuff. And I know a lot of people just pay out of pocket, and it's great for out of pocket expenses. Going to the doctor, getting injections. I take a medication that still costs $200 for a 2-month supply, and I have to get an injection done. In the United States, if I was covered by insurance, that's the other thing too. Medications aren't really kind of covered here by the medical insurance. So one of the things that, since the medications aren't covered, I pay that $200. I can afford it. It hurts me every time I have to pay it. That's $100 a month per medication. And all you guys are probably thinking, man, that's not bad, because even with insurance, I'm paying $300 for my prescription, which is, like I said, it's cheaper here. It really is. But you also got to remember that cheaper may not mean within your means. So you need to really look into these things. Maybe even look into how much your medication costs. Go to the pharmacy when you come down to visit and see how much, grab all your medications, see how much is a 30-day supply? And I pay less for some of my medications than I do even on a generic copay. Like in the US, some generic medications that I would take is $10 copay. Here I pay $3 for the same medication. Okay. And this, I was paying $10, and heaven knows how much they were charging the insurance company. So yes, medical care here is cheaper, but you have to take it into context. Okay, Blaine, what happens if you're picked up by an ambulance, incapacitated, don't have insurance, but can pay for a procedure? Okay, Blaine, what'll normally happen, and what you're going to find about the ambulance service here, most of the ambulance services here are the biggest one is the Red Cross, the Cruz Roja. What they will do, if, like, let's say you get in a car accident, you're unconscious, they're going to take you and get you stabilized and get you care. Okay. It might, more than likely, it'll be at a public hospital. Now, what they will do at the public hospital, let's say you have insurance, you can pay for it. They'll stabilize you, make sure you're fine, and then you can transfer to a private hospital under your insurance or whatever. But what they will do, even at a public hospital, okay, if you don't have Seguro Social or you don't have Social Security and you get admitted because of a car accident, of course, if you have insurance, Mexican insurance, the insurance will pay the public hospital. But the public hospital will make you liable. It's not free healthcare. Okay, it's free healthcare in the sense that if you worked all your life here in Mexico and you have that benefit, you paid into it, so you have it, it's free. But it's not free in the sense of Canada free, or it's not Spain free. Like when you walk into a public hospital and you get taken care of and you don't pay anything for the bill. In a public hospital, you can still be made liable for the bill. Now, here's the thing that I tell people, because they're like, oh, no, I don't want to go to a public hospital because that's really bad. And yes, public hospitals, you might share a room. You have to have a family member there with you, all sorts of stuff. But you got to remember, most of the doctors that practice at IMSS, first of all, they see the worst of the worst cases of everything. So probably there are even a lot better doctors in IMSS than there are in private. Private, you have to really figure out who's good, who's not, who's suggested. So just because you get taken to a public hospital, you might get better care. As a matter of fact, even trauma-wise, for trauma care, probably you're better, or you get stabbed or you get shot, you're better off going to a public hospital because those emergency room personnel probably see that every day, okay, or every other day. Whereas a private hospital, the emergency room surgeon, last time I saw someone shot was 6 months ago. So you're probably going to get better care there, especially with car accidents, all of that stuff. What you can do is, once you're conscious and everything, what they will normally do, like Stephanie said, they wouldn't let them out until the hospital bill was paid. So you either have to pay up front if you're conscious, okay, or let's say you're not. Now, one thing to remember here is it's not a matter of, okay, the ambulance gets you there, give me your insurance information, no, they treat you right away. I mean, they're not gonna, if you're bleeding or your hand's coming off and you need to do something and put it back together, they're going to put it back together. But there's going to come a point in time where they're going to say, okay, now we put your arm back together. Who's going to pay the bill? And until you pay the bill, we're not going to let you out. And every day you stay here, you're going to keep accumulating a bill. So that's how they take care of it. Now, let's say your wife comes in with you, or like for in my case, my father-in-law wasn't with us. He stayed home because we needed to run to the hospital. My sister-in-law came, took care of my father-in-law. We ran to the hospital with the sister-in-law. Well, of course, my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law wasn't conscious. We took her purse. We're the ones that gave it. And as a matter of fact, we even signed the responsibility for the financial responsibility. So if someone's there that can pay for you or whatever, they're going to say, give me a deposit. Or let's say you're conscious and okay, how are you going to pay for this? And unfortunately, it's a little bit less, I don't know how to explain it. The thing about the medical care system is they're super, super attentive, humane, everything but when it comes to getting admitted to the hospital, trust me, sorry, we can't let you in. We'll close the door if you can't pay. And unfortunately, that's just the way it works with the private healthcare system. Now, if you have insurance, like, for example, my mother-in-law has insurance and maybe they find the insurance card, yeah, they're going to take the information down and let the insurance know that, hey, we have this guy that's unconscious that supposedly has your insurance. What's the deal? I mean, they're not that mean in the sense, but yes, it can be it can be bad. Let me put it that way. If you're not prepared. Terry Butler, which credit card do they like to pay the bill with? Actually, Terry, I've used Chase. I have Chase Sapphire. Chase Sapphire, Capital One also is a good credit card to have. You're talking about U.S. credit cards. I'm talking. I have both Mexican credit card and the U.S. credit cards. The problem with Mexican credit cards is that the interest rates are like 20% a month, not a year, a month. And literally on $100,000, you start paying $10,000. You're paying almost $1,000 a month in interest. So you have to be careful with Mexican credit cards. My Mexican credit card is a credit card that we put money on it. Well, I pay it right away at the end of the month. But I have a high enough limit, like 300,000, I think, pesos on my Mexican credit card, if I need it in case of an emergency. Now, here's the thing. I use the American credit cards because I have more than enough credit on those. I use Chase Sapphire. They don't charge international fees, and which is a percentage of your transaction. And they don't charge there's two fees. There's the transaction fee just for using the terminal, and then there's another fee of a percentage of the amount for a lot of credit card companies to process in a foreign country. Capital One and Chase. Now, the thing with Chase, it has to be a Sapphire card from what I understand. Just make sure it's that Sapphire well, I guess they have different kinds of cards, but I don't pay international fee. So basically, when I use the credit card, I get the exchange rate, the bank exchange rate, bank to bank exchange rate at that particular time, and I don't pay any extra fees. And then I also have the luxury that I only pay 20%. And most credit card terminals here will take U.S. credit cards. Um, the only thing you want to be careful with a debit card, and this is just regulated by the banks over there in the United States, there's a maximum amount. Some debit cards you can only put up to $500. Some others are $1,000. So what I would say is just get a U.S. credit card, a full-fledged credit card with a good credit limit. Tom, I remember when COVID was in full force and they needed a test to return to USA, and it was only $10 in Dahihi Clinic Medical Service in Mexico. Yeah, it's very inexpensive. I get injections. I have a medication that I inject. One moment, I need to drink some water. Like I said, talk about medical conditions. My head and neck cancer, and I whenever I was drinking before, I would make a noise. So I'm going to mute the mic for just a second. So I literally, when I go to, it's like $2 to go get my inject. I go to the pharmacy, I buy the medication. As long as it's not, I mean, I have my prescription, but I just go buy the medication. I go to the doctor down the street and I pay $3 to get injected. It can be very, very affordable. Okay. Generic medications here. I take the generic equivalent atravacetin, which is Lipitor. The generic equivalent, I probably pay no more than $5 for a 2-month supply of that medication. So medication, now I do take some brand name medications that are kind of expensive, but it's still $20, $30, $40, $50. For actually, one of the medications is $50, but it's for a 2-month supply. That's what I'd be paying in, well, maybe a little bit less, but I don't end up in the hole, really, to be honest with you, when it comes to medical care. Hey, Michael, good to see you. Hadn't seen you in a while. Great to see you here. Okay. Do you know anything about VA disability insurance and how it works in Mexico? We're still waiting to hear back from the VA about vets living abroad. Actually, you might. Actually, the VA is going to be able to answer your question there. I do know a couple of people that have VA benefits. What a lot of them do is they travel to the border, to the VA hospital in the border, and they're able to get their VA stuff done. Sort of like the Medicare stuff. I'm not sure that the VA actually covers you. Now, I do know, like I have an uncle with VA benefits, but he lives close to a military base. The problem that you have here, and I think some military, I'm not sure, I wasn't really in the military. I went into public service, but I didn't do it through the military. I went through just straight out of college. But I do think I have an uncle that has his stuff covered at the military base, but he's retired military, retired. And I don't know if he's got VA benefits or retirement benefits, but he gets all of his stuff done there. I do know, I don't think Nerd Uno's here, but he has the VA stuff. And I think he says he goes back to McAllen, Texas to have his stuff done. But you might want, like I said, check with the VA. I don't know if they have any kind of agreements or how it works, because I do know that VA, actually I had a friend of mine that worked for the Office of the Inspector General for the VA, and he did a lot of criminal cases with fraud and stuff. And I know that there are some VA benefits, because sometimes a VA hospital can't do the procedure, and then they have to do it to a private. I don't know if they do that overseas. To be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that question. But actually, if you ever get the answer to the question, if you could leave it in the comment section, that would help us a lot, Lisa and Terry. It would help us a lot to tell people that, yeah, your VA is going to work down here. No, it's not. Uh, and hopefully I don't know, it might be a deal like Medicare, because everybody that I know that uses their VA benefits usually goes back to the States to get anything major done. Now, here's the thing. That's not to say they don't cover you in an emergency. Medicare supposedly covers you in an emergency. So, and the other thing that I might do is with Craig Covey, when I get him on, and actually I told him I was going to get a hold of him and never did. But when I get him on, that's one of the things I'll ask him is, how does VA benefits work? Because this Lakeside Medical supposedly takes Medicare, all sorts of private insurances and all sorts of stuff. But I can't tell you how it how it works. Thank you. We bought the policy at the time when we weren't thinking about moving to Mexico or leaving the US. Yeah. And like I said, I mean, that's natural. I had actually the only way I found out, let me tell you how I found out my US insurance works here. Um, I did 3 years in Brazil as a country attaché for my agency. I was attached to the State Department. I've talked about this in my videos. Um, but when I was in Brazil, we had an embassy doctor, and I never really had to go to the doctor. And now also Brazil was the same as here. If you go to the doctor, the consult was $20. So, I mean, it didn't even make my copay. My copay was more. So I didn't use it. But I one time called Blue Cross. I had one medical condition that I needed to get reimbursed. So I called Blue Cross Blue Shield. They said, not a problem. We cover you overseas. And I thought it was because I was working. I'm actively working overseas. I didn't have a choice. So when I had to have this surgery that discovered my cancer, I changed insurances from, now I'm under Aetna, which is it's actually mail handlers insurance, but it's under Aetna. Aetna's the insurance company that does mail handler. I'm not a postal employee, but I somehow qualify. Certain agencies in the government qualify for mail handlers. And I decided I was going to pay out of pocket. This surgery was going to cost me $8,000. The surgery probably would have cost me close to $30, $40, $50, $60,000 in the United States. It was a 3-day stay. They had to take a lump out of my neck, and actually it was even worse. They had to scrape my carotid artery, and they took off a lymph node, and that's what came out positive for cancer. I decided, because I even paid, and actually I paid for the MRI. I paid for everything out of pocket because I was like, I can't wait anymore. I mean, this ball's on my neck, and the insurance company in the United States has been running me around for the last 3 months. I can't wait another month. And so I just decided I'm going to pay out of pocket. I'll take the money out of savings or whatever. But I said, you know what? My insurance used to work in Brazil. Why don't I check with Aetna, just to see if it works? And the thing is, I'm kind of obligated to keep my insurance because the minute I get off of it, I can never get back on. So I at that time, I just thought, oh, I'm supposed to keep my insurance because if I ever get off, if I ever have to go back to the U.S. or whatever, I won't have insurance. So I called and I said, hey, this is my situation. Oh, no, not a problem. Send us a bill. And actually, here's where you go. This is how you fill out a claim. And there's a form. And this is the website. I'll send you a link. And I was like, okay. Now, do I need to get a pre-authorization? No, you don't need to get a pre-authorization. And I was like, well, why? I'm waiting for pre-authorizations for 3 months now. Oh, that's because it's in the United States. And over there, I'm almost sure that the operation is cheaper. So we're very used to paying out without no questions asked. Now, I have had issues where I've had to send doctor's letters or doctor's notes because maybe all I have is a credit card receipt. So I have to get the doctor to write a letter saying that this credit card receipt was my charges for my services. I mean, I can't just put a credit card receipt to ABC company and say, hey, I went to the doctor. And no, it's a little bit more complicated than that. And on my cancer treatment, I had to get a breakdown, everyday breakdown. I had to do, now the hospitals pretty much do the same thing here as they do in the United States as far as a detailed bill. So I've never had any problems in my hospital stays. they can code it. But the issue that you have with U.S. insurance companies, they have to code it, and sometimes the Mexican procedure doesn't match. They have to find something that matches the U.S. so they can pay it out in the computer. So um, I just discovered it that way. So that's one thing. I said, hey, call your insurance company. Maybe like on a lot of this, people that got it through the Affordable Care Act, maybe those insurance policies don't have it. I know a lot of people that said, hey, I have Blue Cross Blue Shield, but if I'm out of the country, I have to pay like 70% of the bill. Other people say, yep, my insurance company works just fine. Uh, so, yes, Tom, yes, the acronym. I didn't know this, that it was fast, but I just learned this is what you do. But it's face, arm, speech, time. Okay. Time is of the essence. Uh, because, like I said, time is of the essence, because if they're going to give the medication, they have to be able to do that, because the medication can be beneficial. When my father had a stroke, the medication, we got him in within an hour and a half. The medication worked just perfectly because we knew when it happened. Uh, but uh, but like I said, we knew when it happened, everything else. But the problem is, if you don't give it at the right time, or they're not a candidate, they actually have to go up and do a CT scan to make sure that you're okay. They also have to do a thermographic scan to make sure you're not bleeding already. Because sometimes what we confuse is they're all strokes. Okay, let's all call them all strokes. But there's different kinds of strokes. There's a stroke where you have a blood clot that goes to the brain. There's a stroke where your brain is bleeding. You actually have a hemorrhage in your brain. So those are the different kinds. So if I have a hemorrhage in my brain, they're not going to give you the medication to make your blood even thinner, if that makes sense. If you have a blood clot, they want to break that blood clot up with the medication. But the only problem is if too much time has passed, even if you block that medication will clear the blood clot, then the problem with that is that you can end up having internal bleeding. So the benefits may not be as good as the side effects. Doctor, can Mexican hospitals No, they can't actually. Um, Now, what I have had is I've had it the other way around. Doctors here, as a matter of fact, I'll tell you what, user FKYD or whatever, HY. What I have had here is where the thing is, like, for example, when you do an MRI, you go to the MRI center, you get the MRI, and they give you a folder with the disc and, of course, the reading. The doctor, the radiologist reads it, and you get a full package. That package is yours. You keep it. If you need to take it to another specialist, you take it to the other specialist. That's what's really great about doctors' records here. You are the owner of your doctor's records, not the doctor. In the U.S., there's very strict privacy rules. You have to sign like 15 or 20 waivers saying I authorize this doctor to give my medical records to another person. Actually, I've had friends have issues where the doctors over there don't even want to release your medical records. They'll only release it to another doctor. And that's if you sign like 15 forms. I'm being a little bit over exaggerating, but you have to sign releases. Even when I would do my security clearance backgrounds, I had to sign medical releases so that they could go in and say, okay, we need to find out if this guy's telling the truth about his medical condition, or that he has no medical condition, although he's seen you as a doctor. So the other way now, if you have Mexican medical records and you need to go back to the United States, as a matter of fact, one of my friends just did that. He went to the Mayo Clinic. The Mayo Clinic ordered a bunch of tests. His insurance was like a $10,000 deductible. So he would have been paying thousands of dollars. So he said, I'm going to go down to Guadalajara. He came down to Guadalajara, did the whole list of tests, took it back to the Mayo Clinic and says, here they are. Tell me what you think. And actually, even then, The Mayo Clinic, we're talking Mayo Clinic, famous Mayo Clinic, wasn't able to diagnose this problem. Guess who diagnosed this problem? Somebody here in Guadalajara, Mexico, was able to figure out what was wrong. And a whole team of doctors from the famous Mayo Clinic couldn't figure it out. So that goes to show you how good the quality of medical care here is. Uh, this gives you a perfect example. Thank you, Gringos R Us. Gina had a doctor take care of a cyst in Hualtuco, 3,500 pesos total. Easy peasy and quickly taken care of. Uh, can you imagine if they would have gone into a medical center in the United States? 3,000 pesos is, well, 3,000, I'm going to say 3,000 is $150. So when I talk about routine medical care, you can pay out of pocket here. It's where I think where we don't focus on, and a lot of times we don't think about, is what if I have a heart attack? What if I need open heart surgery? I have a medical condition on my heart that I might even need to have an aorta replaced. That's not a cheap surgery. Okay. So, I mean, I haven't gotten to that point yet, but it's not a cheap surgery. It's going to still, now, if I went back to the United States and had it done there, it would be 5 or 6 times more expensive. But I need to think about that, because if I need to go tomorrow, let's say next year I go get my stress test and they say you need to get a valve replaced or you need to get your aorta replaced, I'm going to have to come up with at least $200,000 or $10,000 to deposit, number one, before they'll even operate on me. Or what if I get a heart attack as a result of this? Because between now and I'm not going to, I don't think I will, but we never know. Life hands you a lot of curveballs sometimes. I have to be ready to be able to say, and my wife has instructions on what to do. We know what to do. We always carry that credit card with us. If one of us is conscious, we can take care of the other one, as far as getting you into the hospital. So, Tom, yes, actually, it's actually for my insurance company, you know what? I think it was 62 or 65. 70, I'll tell you what, Tom, when they say, I can't believe that one can get health insurance after 70, some companies will let you get it up to 70, but after 70, I think 70 is the highest I've ever heard, that you won't qualify. You just can't get it, period. Now, if you got it before you were 70, you can keep it after you're 70, but that's the catch. And of course, you were making a statement, Tom, that you should have some money for Medicare. I mean, not Medicare, for emergencies and that type of stuff. Anna, in an emergency, sounds like it's better for you to be taken to a public hospital. And Anna, in a lot of occasions, 99% of the time you're going to be taken to, if it's an ambulance, they're going to take you to the public hospital. Now, if you tell the ambulance, for example, if I have a heart attack, I don't want to go to the public hospital is in Querétaro. There is a hospital here, but it's not, they couldn't open me up right now or stabilize me. And there is a lot of procedures here in San Miguel, because it's a small town, that you would probably have to go to Querétaro or Mexico City, but they'll stabilize you here. And of course, they're pretty decently, here they're very well equipped because we have a big foreign community. So if I tell Cruz Roja, take me to Mac, or my wife is with me and says, get him to Mac, they're probably going to take me to Mac. I mean, they'll take me where I asked them to take me. But if you're unconscious, you have an accident, more than likely they're going to take you to the public hospital. Someone said, don't piss off your spouse or you may not get treated. Yeah, especially if she's the one holding the credit card or he. It goes both ways. So Can't say she or he. I say she because I'm my spouse, but it goes both ways. So, Tom, I personally may give up my prescription plan when I move to Mexico. No prescription is necessary and probably half the price. Yeah, it is, Tom. And unless you're taking a um, uh, whatchamacallit, unless you're taking a very expensive medication or whatever, it's going to come out to most of the time to the same. Or you're taking 20 million prescriptions, because I do know people that have a lot of prescriptions, and through uh, their Medicare or whatever, they have their stuff. You know, they get their 3-month supply or whatever, or 1-month supply, or they have contacts in the U.S. They can pick up their medications, and they get it done through there. Tom, I disagree with going to a trauma hospital first. You hit my head. Actually, when I was talking about a trauma hospital, Tom, I'm talking about a major car accident. I'm talking about if you had trauma. Most of the time, if you hit your head and you can say, "Hey, I want to go," so I will agree with you on that. Maybe I didn't maybe I didn't word it well enough, Tom, but uh, when I talked about going to a trauma center or a public hospital that has a trauma center, I was talking about being like in a car accident or a major heart attack, like major heart attack. Uh, you know, where they have surgeons that can right there. Uh, but and also, like I said, these trauma centers have seen. As a matter of fact, I'll give you an example, Tom. When I was in Phoenix, Arizona, I belonged to our special response team there in Phoenix, Arizona, which is a SWAT team kind of thing. And one of the things that we do when we plan, without going into all the details of SWAT or special response teams, well, SWAT, I guess they started calling them SRT teams because it's a little bit more politically correct. But these special response teams, one of the things you do before an operation is you always plan where's the closest hospital in case we get into any kind of critical incident, blah, blah, blah. And we had several very, very well-known hospitals, very famous hospitals in Phoenix. And every time we do an operational plan, they say, okay, the closest, and we always go over the operational plan, like literally everybody reads it. Everybody go, okay, which hospital do we go to if there's a problem? We go to this hospital. And every single time the operational plan, it had county hospital, county hospital, county hospital. And I knew from living in Phoenix that county hospital was like a dump in a bad part of town. And it was not very well known very famous for people not making it, I guess you might say. What I mean by not making it is it just was a really bad hospital from what everybody, but compared to these private hospitals, yeah, it was. But I one time asked, I said, why is this county hot? Because we're closer to this, and we'd always say, if it's really bad, go to this hospital because it's 3 blocks down the road, but always county. Or if we get airlift support, county, because a lot of times we do operations outside of the city limits. And I said, why county? Why county? Why county? And the first thing they always said is, if you get shot, the best person to handle a gunshot wound is somebody in the county hospital. Because guess what? They handle gunshot wounds every day. The trick is, get stabilized, get operated on. Once you're stable, then go to the private hospital. And that's kind of what I'm gearing at here is if you have a car accident, probably the public hospital sees like 99% of the car accidents. You're probably better at a trauma center, and a lot of the public hospitals are level whatever trauma centers, okay? Because it's the only hospital in the whole city. So it's not like some private hospital that, okay, this hospital's a level 1, this hospital's a level 2. I forgot what the levels are. because even when I was in other offices and I was doing the same thing, we also had to do the hospital thing, and we had to look up which one is a trauma center to be able to deal with it. Thanks, Jesse. I hope, like I said, I'll probably be a little bit preoccupied with. I don't think my mother-in-law is going to get out by Friday. I'm going to be a little bit preoccupied, but I'm looking forward to meeting everybody. Um, I'll be there. Don't worry. But maybe a little preoccupied with in my mind, but dying to retire, never get off PHB. You can change during the open season, but never get off, to include dental and vision. That is very true. Dying to retire. I will keep it for forever, I guess you might say. User, that's what I'm here for, to answer your questions. Terry, you have a great week, and we'll see you next Saturday. And I know one or two YouTubers are coming in a little bit early, and I would have really loved to hang out with them, because they sent a message and said, "Hey, who wants to hang out?" I'm not going to be able to, because I've got this personal situation that I'm dealing with. But like I said, we'll see you guys on Saturday for sure. And we have another meeting that I'm going to go to. But other than that, we'll see you. Tom, yep. Hit the gym 5 times, 6 times a week. Take a handful of vitamins. That's a great thing to do. You use it or lose it. That's right. We exercise every day. That's keep moving. And one of the things that I also did with my agency is I was a personal trainer, because we had to keep fit, and we would administer fitness tests to our agents every 6 months. Well, in one agency I was in, it was every 6 months. Another agency, the second agency I was in, it was every year. And I was the one that was in charge of administering the fitness test. So I went through a lot of training. And one of the things that, from my training in fitness and everything else, I'm at an age where I can no longer lift or bench press 300 pounds. I probably could if I tried, but I mean, I would probably hurt myself before I would actually become successful at it, or I would probably hurt myself trying. One of the things that I always tell everybody, no matter what age you are, is move. Keep moving. Keep your mind active. Keep moving. We walk our dogs every day, 5 kilometers. We do a 5K every day walking. Sometimes just walking can be beneficial. I do some body stuff, body weight stuff. I haven't lately because I've been very busy, but we at least get out and move and walk. I have a 2-story house. I hated 2-story houses. Oh, I actually have a 3-story house. Uh, uh, Upstairs, we have a terrace. So I have 3 stories. I'm up and down the stairs every day. The best thing it could be. I'm literally, if I have to go to the bathroom, I go upstairs to our room upstairs. We have a room downstairs, but we don't live in the room downstairs. We have a room. We live in the room upstairs, and I go upstairs, and I probably don't. I don't know how many stories I do. I should. On my Apple Watch, I keep track of it, but I don't know how many. But I climb, I don't know how many flights of stairs a day. And that helps, because even on your legs, when your muscles going up and downstairs. And my wife and I have made a vow that we will not move downstairs to the downstairs bedroom until we're no longer physically able to do it. And hopefully we'll be able to do it for many years to come. Oh, dying to retire. You finally got your retirement services card from OPM last week. OPM still got a little more to do. I have to head out in a second. Prayers for your family and your mother-in-law. Thanks a lot, dying to retire. And congratulations on your your OPM stuff. Mine took about a month. No, I was pretty much, I was getting my pension probably within, it took about 30 days. but some people it takes a lot longer. So just hang in there with patience. With Pete Stocks, what's your opinion on the Los Frailes area? The Los Frailes area here here's the thing about the Los Frailes area. I live totally across town. The Los Frailes area is very popular amongst the foreign community. A lot of expats live there. Actually, lately I've been walking dogs. One of my public services has been to help out the community. We've been walking dogs from a shelter in the Los Frailes area. So I go walking around the Los, and I have friends there too. It's an older neighborhood. It's got old colonial houses. The housing is a little bit more expensive there, probably because foreigners live there. A lot of the properties you'll find are listed there in US dollars. They're not even listed in pesos because there's a big foreign community there. Some of the pluses of the Los Frailes area, even though it is kind of out of town on the exit to Celaya, the plus is it's close to a neighborhood called San Antonio. You have the Comer right there, grocery store. And not only the Comer grocery store, but you have City Market right across. And then there's a strip that goes all the way up to the central. You can actually literally, if you want to, walk from Los Frailes. It's a little bit of a long walk. I mean, it can be a little bit of a long walk, but you can actually walk to the restaurants. A lot of people walk there to the restaurants. There's a lot going on there, so a lot of people like to go there. The only thing with Los Frailes, there is a couple of private neighborhoods there with guards and everything else. Where I live, I live in a golf course community where you have to come through a main entrance through security. Then I live in a neighborhood inside the golf course. So we have 2 security checkpoints just to get into my place. And so with those two security checkpoints, we feel a little bit more secure. It's a little bit quieter here. Los Frailes is it's an old neighborhood, really, basically. There is a lot of property crime there. I've known several people that have gotten broken into there. I know one person that has been working on a house there, and their construction crew, they've stolen they know that the people aren't there, so they've gone in and stolen tools. There's now not violent crime, but it's mostly property crime. People's cars getting broken into, people's houses getting here where I live. You don't see that because of the security, but it depends on what you like. Los Frailes is a nice neighborhood, very well established neighborhood. A lot of beautiful houses out in Los Frailes. Especially if you love colonial architecture or you want a good fixer-upper. I know a lot of people love to fix up the houses, if San Miguel style and all of that stuff. You can't go wrong, to be honest with you, Pete, with living there. I walk the streets of Los Frailes when I walk dogs, and you'll find plenty of people speaking English there. There's little parks there. There's even, and I saw this, I saw this in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where people put out little like mailboxes and they put books inside, and you take a book and you leave a book. So it's a nice little area, but unfortunately it wasn't for us. But we do know a lot of people that are happy living there. They like it there. It's close to everything. It's close to a major grocery store. I mean, you can walk to the major grocery store, but my friends take their car. I mean, it still is a good couple of kilometers away, but there are people that like it because they can walk all the way down to the restaurants. Actually, some of the restaurants we go to for breakfast are in that area. So, Junior, your OPM pension took 3 months, but it's worth the wait. Yeah, I was very surprised, Junior. They told me it was going to take 3 months, but my process was pretty quick. I did it. I waited till the end of the year because of the use or lose thing and cashing out your leave. And to be honest with you, my leave check or the cashing out my leave held me over till my pension started coming in. So I didn't have a, but I do have friends that actually I had some friends that waited 6 months. Yeah, the strip is called Gringolandia. That's the they call it's the salida. This it's San Antonio is the name of the neighborhood that strip is in, and that's where all the foreigners hang out. And you can walk to the Central from there too. Oh, you're in Guadalajara. Enjoy the food. The food is to die for. When we went to Guadalajara, we went to a place called I think it was Huesos. The theme was bones all over the place, and it was like a communal diet. Well, we went during the time of COVID, so you didn't communally dine, but it was awesome. The food there was awesome. Enjoy your time there in Guadalajara, Michael. Thanks, Blaine. Thanks. Thanks for the prayers. I really appreciate it. We have a lot ahead of us, especially I've been with my both parents with strokes, and I have an uncle, an aunt that got a stroke, and so I know from family it's a long road ahead. Um, is Irapuato safe? Um, I'll tell you what, Michael. We have some friends from Irapuato. His wife is from Irapuato. Um, they seem to say, I mean, they go there to visit family. I've never really been to Irapuato. Um, the problem is you have here in Guanajuato, Michael, is Guanajuato, and I touched on this the last live stream. Let me see. Oh, we're almost going on 146. Oh, well, I'll try to. I'm trying to get to everybody's questions for sure. But the one problem with Guanajuato is it's kind of considered like the most what do you call it? Dangerous city, not city, the dangerous state. Okay, but I was explaining this in the last time that like places like San Miguel de Allende, Guanajuato City, and I don't know where Irapuato, Comonfort, which is close to here, which some will argue maybe is a little sketchy, but there's a lot of little towns here that it's totally safe. I mean, we haven't had any issues. Now, San Miguel has had some issues where some violence sometimes spills over, but you don't see, uh, I don't know, major incidents per se of anybody like foreigners getting in trouble or hurt. But the thing with Guanajuato is it's kind of a hit or miss. It's because the state has issues. I try to say it not necessarily do all the cities. So I don't know where Irapuato really falls into it, but I'll tell you what, Michael, we have some friends that are from Irapuato and Irapuato. Uh, Irapuato. Yeah, we have a couple of friends. One friend that's from there, his wife from there, and they go there all the time to visit family. As a matter of fact, their mother-in-law still lives there, and they're fine. Um, so, and they actually have a house in Irapuato, but they decided they fell in love with San Miguel de Allende, and they just bought a house here. And they're remodeling it. So I've noticed a distinct change in attitude towards me going around Mexico since the election, and it ain't good. Yeah, Texas refugee, there's a lot of issues. Uh, I don't want to get into politics over there, but there's a lot of issues. I do see, actually, someone wrote, I'm just about to delete it because I don't allow political opinions, but someone made some comment that Mexico is going to get full of American U.S. refugees from the administration. And I actually said that before. There may even, if it gets bad, there may be, instead of the regularization program, the refugee program or humanitarian program to come here. The United States has become very stigmatized and like I said in the last one, I'm I'm not a politician, but you're either left or you're right. There's no in between. And I grew up in the United States where we all were one. We were, yeah, we had views. We had the left, they had the right, and even the Republican Party has lost, to be honest with you, their values. They've lost a lot of things that they stood for. A lot of things that are going down now with Trump are really not Republican, to be honest with you. Um, some of the conservative stuff has stayed around, but it's just gotten totally blown out of proportion. So what I know as what used to be Republicans and even Democrats, what I know used to be a Republican and used to be a Democrat, no longer. I mean, the far left and the far right, they're, to me, they're no longer, how would I say, recognizable to me, to be honest with you. I'm from a school where, uh, you know, uh, I'm from a school where everybody worked together. I mean, both parties worked together, and it was give and take. And yeah, one party didn't believe in abortion, and the other party did. But then they would come to an agreement that if you pass this bill, we'll let you at least have these restrictions on abortion, blah, blah, blah. And they would get together and they would make concessions. Now it's not that way anymore. So we're going to have to see what happens. Yeah, and I know coming from South Texas, to be honest with Texas refugee, things are going to get pretty bad. And I'll tell you what, all those Mexican Americans that voted for Trump down there are going to start seeing how bad it can get. Uh, because right now, with this mass deportation, uh, don't be surprised if these everybody starts getting. I mean, I'll probably get pulled over with Mexican plates when I go over there if I ever drive over there. Uh, Now, here's the thing, Rigo. I know you were saying very good. Well, very nothing is going to be see for a gringo down. Uh, I'm not sure if you're referring to gringos coming here. The one thing that's good, the Mexican president is shooting back at Trump, per se, on the on aranceles with the tariffs, and the Mexican president is shooting back on the cartel issue, saying if you didn't have a drug problem, we wouldn't have a cartel problem, which is true. You have supply and demand, and I don't get into politics, but one thing that you're going to find is that their political Mexico is very separate. As a matter of fact, in Mexico, there's a separation of church and state. You don't hear in Mexico, you don't mix religion. None of this God bless Mexico, God is for Mexico. No, religion is over here on one side and the state is over here. And it's the same thing with politics. We have a political position against the United States, but we're not going to hold it against the American people. And that's what you're going to find here in Mexico. Um, that we don't mix our personal feelings about Americans with our political feelings about the country. Um, Mexicans keep it very simple. Uh, Also, with Mexicans, they also say a politician is a politician. They're all crooked, regardless. Okay, that's what they just say. Okay, so you don't have this stigmatism in the U.S., like the U.S., that Trump is God or Biden's God or whatever it might be and can do no wrong. As a matter of fact, here in the United States, every politician is wrong. I mean, in Mexico, not in the United States, every politician is wrong. Even though you might feel that in the United States, that politicians are corrupt and bad and everything else, nobody says it. God forbid, because you have to be politically correct and you got to be on one side or the other, or else. And if you're not on one side, if you're on the other side, you're the devil. I mean, that's just stupid. I mean, how do you get anything done? I don't care if you're the devil, if you're a conservative, a Democrat, Republican. I don't consider anybody the devil. Uh, we're all human beings. We need to treat each other that way. And you're going to find in Mexico, that's the way it's done. If you have a friend that's a Mexican, they're going to be your friend for life. Uh, so we'll see what happens. Let's see here. Yeah, the king of chaos. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of chaos. um, and I'm not saying that it's not going to be Texas refugee. Okay, I get it. Goodbye. I'm sorry. I'm not. I didn't mean to offend anybody. But one of the things that it is going to be chaos. But I don't. I think it's going to be worse for Mexican Americans and Mexicans that are there and the United States than it is for um, it's going to be a little bit. And like you said, you're going to get stigmatized, or they're going to stigmatize you as, oh my God, he's in Mexico. But you know what, Texas, I already have that. They they stigmatize me all the time, and aren't you're so isn't it dangerous down there and everything else. And I don't think it. I don't take it seriously. Um, and I think there's going to be a lot of chaos from both sides. I'm not putting down one side or the other. Um, Unfortunately, I think it's what's going on in the United States is a societal problem. That's oh my God, it's bad on both sides. Um, and I'm sorry, but we have to respect each other's opinion. And I come from a government where we respected each other's opinion. And I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I come from a Democratic family, but I don't recognize the Democratic Party anymore because I don't recognize what I grew up with. Uh, and the same thing, I know a lot of good Republicans that I worked with uh, politically in the government uh, that had values, had a sense of what was right and wrong, and weren't going to do the wrong thing. I mean, had a moral that you know what, we can't do this. It's wrong. And unfortunately, that in the United States, that's gone out the wall. That's gone out. That's gone out the. There's no. There's no limits anymore. We've had a few negative comments, but they're still overall great. Just like people here in Mexico. Yeah, agreeing with us, you're always going to have those. Uh, the We're always going to have that that issue. Yeah, Michael. Anybody from the north? I brought this up. They're very hospitable, but they're very extroverted compared to people in the central part of Mexico. Central part of Mexico is a little bit more, very much into politically. For example, your greetings in the morning. How, uh, estimados vecinos, buenos días, and um, my 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 great neighbors, good morning. I hope everybody's doing. And they go with a whole salutation before they write the message to the group. In Monterrey, it's sort of like, "Good morning, everybody. Who left the gate open?" And it's not. It sounds maybe a little bit rude, but it's because of the personality of people in the north. Actually, they're not trying to be rude. They're actually being normal in the north, but people and that extroverted attitude too in the north sometimes can be mistaken from you're mad, you're mean, or you're mad, or you're angry. How come you're angry at me? Because we actually we're in the north, and so we know when we come down here, everybody looks at us really certain things we've adjusted to, but on the northern part of us still comes out sometimes. And people are like, why are you so angry? Why did you get mad? We're like, we're not mad. What are you talking about? Oh, it was the tone of your voice. And I'm like, that's normal. I mean, like, what's wrong? And you just find it's because it's a different culture. There's a lot of difference. Yeah, and as of now, over 300,000 people. Oaxaca origin have been deported from the U.S. Yeah, and actually, I think it's gonna. I think it's going to. The amount of deportations is not going to change. The rhetoric's going to change, and the media attention is going to change. But if you're going to look at the numbers, uh, let me put it this way: the U.S. only has a certain capacity to do a certain amount of work. I mean, it's like saying, I'm going to bring a dump truck in that takes 2 tons of dirt, and I'm going to put 6 tons of dirt in the dump truck so that we can be more efficient. Well, how do you put 6 tons of dirt in a dump truck that only fits 3 tons of dirt? But if you fit 3 tons of dirt in the dump truck and tell everybody that it's 6 tons, and the news tells everybody that it's 6 tons and makes drama out of it, then everybody believes it's 6 tons when you only moved 3. So that's what people need to see about the new administration here. What the reality and what actually happens. Now, will it cause lots of protests and all sorts of stuff? I mean, I even see possibilities of violence in the United States, really bad violence on both sides, because you got one side saying, we have rights and we're going to stand up against the establishment. Then you have the other side saying, we're going to protect the establishment. We're going to take our guns and protect us. So you might have a lot of violence. We'll just have to see what happens. Peach stocks. I'm half you're half Mexican, half U.S. citizen. You served in the U.S. in the war. You've served a career in the government. I feel betrayed by the U.S. for what's happened now. I've been hearing lots of racist stuff lately. Yeah, I'll tell you what, Pete, it's getting bad. I'm going home to Mexico by choice. Sad that things are devolving. The cultures are so vastly different now. Yeah, it is, Pete. And I'm almost sure you said you did government service. And I'll tell you what, when I did government service, I can tell you there was a lot of stand-up Democrats and stand-up Republicans. And I worked in Washington with a lot of congressmen, briefing, and the old school. I can tell you there was a lot of stand-up guys on both sides. I can't really say that much for that now, to be honest with you. Yeah, Pete, the U.S. deporting. Yeah, but even then, I'll tell you what, Pete, just coming from that, I know I worked my my agency. Well, my agency was a division of ICE. Okay, I was in what they call Homeland Security Investigations. So I know the ICE structure. I almost even went over to the ICE, the famous ICE that deports people. Okay, we were just a division within there. We were in the investigative arm for Homeland Security, but we were under ICE. As a matter of fact, we were ICE, Office of Investigations, when I first started out, well, when we first merged. And then we became Homeland Security Investigations because too many people were confusing us with the deportation officers and everything else. So I know how the ICE system works, detention beds, all of that stuff. Because even especially when I was in DC, I almost moved over to the not the deportation. They wanted to start, actually, the people that are running around on the streets right now, they wanted me to be one of the assistant directors because they were starting a fugitive program where people that have deportation orders, they wanted to start actively going after them. And I had a history in the U.S. Marshal Service. So they had asked me to go over to see if I could start their fugitive program. And now the fugitive program has developed into what we all know as ICE going door to door and deporting people. But I didn't do that. I stayed with investigations. But I know because I worked with these people, and we also worked with them hand in hand because we also had immigration authority in our investigations. So when we did human trafficking, human smuggling, we worked with ERO, or we call them ERO, enforcement removal operations. I don't know what they call themselves now because it used to be detention removal, DRO, ERO. But before I retired, it was ERO. And we overlapped on a couple of things. And I know how it works. And the problem is the when you deport somebody, the host country, not the host, the country of origin of the person, they have to accept you back. For example, that's the big problems that the United States has always had with Cubans. Cuba does not, I don't know if they do it now because Obama did something with the Cubans to, I don't know, the deportation was one of them. Um, but it's still the RO. Okay. uh, the Cubans, Cuba had to take, so when you deport a Cuban, the Cuban doesn't go nowhere. They stay in the United States because they can't go back to Cuba because Cuba won't take them. So when you're deporting somebody, now I do know that, yeah, there's all this talk about stay in Mexico or we're going to throw them back to Mexico, but Mexico doesn't have to accept those people neither. If Mexico accepts them, that's by agreement. So the problem is what do you do with a person or you have to do paperwork to get the person back to that country. So it might take 6 months to get the person back, right? So you need to detain them. You need to, and I know they're talking about putting together detention camps and all sorts of stuff, but there's only a certain capacity and a certain amount of money you can afford to keep people for the 3 months while you're deporting them. So the big issue that you have is if you have 1 million people and you can only get rid of 10,000 at a time, you can only get rid of 10,000 at a time. It's just like the analogy of the dump truck. If I have a dump truck that only carries 3 tons, that's all I'm going to be able to move. Now, I can tell people it's 10 tons. I can grab the news media and show the 10 tons and show them, oh, I'm filling the dump truck with this 10 tons. Look, it weighs 10 tons. And then the next scene show, oh, we moved 10 tons. I can make it look like 10 tons, but it's not necessarily all the time 10 tons. That is, the United States is going to be controlled by, yeah, you can get bed spaces. Don't get me wrong. ERO can get a bigger budget, and ICE can get a bigger budget. But even putting, I don't know, 10,000 ICE, new ICE enforcement removal operations people on the street, 10,000. Okay, let's just say I'm going to put 10,000 on the street. You still have to hire those 10,000. You still have a security clearance process that you need to do. And even if you rush everything and get everybody in the academy, you got to figure out a way to train 10,000 people. And one class in an academy is maybe 50. So you're training 50 people at a time at a 5-month academy. How are you going to get 10,000 people through? Now, I do know Border Patrol's done it before. They opened up extra academies and everything else. But all of that stuff costs money. And also it takes time. So even if someone says, we're going to hire 20,000 Border Patrol agents, 20,000 new ICE agents, okay, how are you going to put them through training? It's going to take 5, maybe 6 years to get them all on board. So what you can physically do, I mean, it's just a reality of things. I'm not here to argue politics, whether you should or you shouldn't, or break the law or don't break the law. I'm not here to even talk about poor people that are being deported. No, I'm here to talk about the reality. And that's what my channel's about. It's about the realities of living in Mexico. I'm not going to fluff up Mexico because I'll tell you it's the best that I've ever done. I'm not going to fluff up any. I'm going to tell you how it is so that you can make an educated decision. Okay? You can make an educated decision on whether you want to do it or not. And I don't want you to be surprised. And it's the same thing when I talk about what's going on in the government. I try to keep it not from a conservative view or a liberal view. I'm just telling you from the view of having worked there and knowing how it works. And I'm going to tell you right now, even when I was with the U.S. Marshal Service, we used to handle detention beds. And I don't know how many times judges, literally, we had to tell the judge. I mean, we were putting people all over the place, and this was before private detention centers were big. And there was times where the U.S. attorney would ask the actual prosecutor would ask for, let this guy out on bond because we don't have any bed spaces to put him, and he's not a violent offender. And that's where really, to be honest with you, without going into a tirade about immigration in the United States, that's the problem that the United States was having. You know, everybody talks about, oh, that's catch and release. They were catching and releasing everybody. Well, they were catching and releasing everybody because they didn't have the detention beds to put people in. If you don't have the facilities to put the people in, then what do? Oh man, still going after 2 hours. Thanks, Blaine, for reminding me. I should start winding this down. But like I said, there's a reality to it. And the reality was the catch and release wasn't because some bleeding heart liberal wanted to let everybody go. It's because they didn't have places to put these people. And if you don't have places to put these people or send them back, how do you handle it? Well, our law, and the law didn't help. The immigration law doesn't help. I'm going to tell you right now. The immigration law is not going to help. Until the law is actually changed, there's not a lot that an immigration officer can do. Okay. They have a lot of discretion in a lot of ways, but then there's also the reality of it. So, now, if Trump increases he can sign an executive order saying deport 15 million people tomorrow, but the executive order means nothing if the capacity to deport is only 10,000, if that makes sense to anybody. You can't move a dump truck. You can move 10 tons, but it's going to take the dump truck. Okay. Let's say you have a dump truck that takes 3 tons. I'm using the dump truck as an example. You're going to have to make 3 trips to move the whole 10 tons. Okay. You can't move the 10 tons in one trip. So that's kind of what the U.S. is facing right now. It sounds good on paper. How they're going to do it. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you what, Trump himself has said that he's deported, his first term in office, he deported more people than any other president, which is not true. The statistics, and I'll tell you what, I worked for the agency and I've seen the statistics. And probably, believe it or not, I hate to say this, and I'm not saying this, but could be political. Trump, who's a Republican, has deported less people than several Democratic administrations. Obama and Clinton probably deported more criminals and more people than some of these Republicans that are screaming about immigration. But the problem is nobody wants to hear that because we're so politically polarized in the U.S. nowadays. But that's an actual fact. That's the numbers. I don't know the Biden administration. I haven't kept up with it. I don't keep up with it because I don't work in that field anymore. But it's all about appearances. When it comes to politics, it's all about appearances. I hate to say it. And one thing about living here in Mexico, is that you start taking a different approach. How would you say? You start looking at politicians and politics a lot differently because politics works a lot different in Mexico in a sense, the attitude towards politics. But if you look at the system of politics in general, whether it's here in Mexico, and I know everybody loves to say, oh, Mexico's so corrupt. So is the U.S. The politicians are just as corrupt in the U.S. Now, maybe, you have a cop that's trying to get a 300 pesos, but do you have any idea how much a New York cop makes compared to a cop here in Mexico City? The cop here in Mexico City is making $5 a day, and the cop in New York City is making $100,000 a year after overtime and everything else. Well, maybe there's a reason why they're trying to shake people down. I'm not justifying it. But what I'm trying to say is we look at those little things, but we still have corrupt cops in the United States. I arrested many corrupt cops moving drugs. I put many law enforcement officers, clergy members in prison. There's not that much of a difference between the different countries. The only difference is the way we're indoctrinated in the United States into believing that we don't do those things wrong. And here in Mexico, it's like, no, once a rat, always a rat. Politicians are rat, period. Yeah, do they? And all a Mexican cares about is, we already know you're gonna steal money. We already know you're corrupt. We just want to know how much you're gonna do for the country. And the thing about it is, when you look at the United States, it's the same thing. You got politicians, insider trading. You got people doing stuff for their own. It's no different. The only difference is how we approach it. And living in a different country like Mexico, when you see how they are approaching it in Mexico, you're like, hey, it's the same in the U.S., man. It's no different. So, yeah, you aren't under a constant barrage of messaging, and the Mexico is becoming people's entire identities in the U.S., and that's true. It's so true. Uh, uh, that is very, very true. It's becoming an identity, and people here don't take that on as an identity. My personal life and politics are two different things. So, and do you still have political battles here? Yeah. I mean, as a matter of fact, the last two presidents have been very, very controversial. People have claimed that Mexico is going to become the next Venezuela because supposedly, but it's a question of class. It's not a question of, but people will still tell you a politician is a politician. Don't care what party they come from. And so that's the difference. Well, I'm going to leave it at that because I'm at 2 hours, and I usually try to cut it off at 1, and I got a little bit carried away. Sorry for those of you that were able to hang out with me. Thank you very much. Let me see here. Yeah, morning name. Um, I'm going to go ahead and we were talking about the cops and everything else. They used to have corrupt cops, uh, but I'm ready to sign off. Thank you guys for joining me, and I really do appreciate it. For those of you who have stuck with me for until uh, I still have 23 people here, uh, and I really appreciate you guys. Like I said, I like the number of people that I get on my live streams because the one thing that I'm able to do with these live streams with the limited number that come on, and I hope more people watch it. Perfect if you watch it later. But what I like to do is it gives me more of a chance to be more personal with you guys. It gives me a chance to pretty much actually it gives me a chance to pretty much talk to you guys personally and get to everybody's question. Sometimes that's why it takes me 2 hours. I get to everybody, pretty much everybody's. Sometimes I apologize if I skip your question or I don't see it on the comments. I have another, the software I use has a different thing, and sometimes I have to scroll back and forth. Sometimes it looks like I'm busy looking down and up and everything. I'm looking at all my screens. So I really, really do appreciate you guys. And I think we've really built a good community. And I really appreciate the fact that you guys pick it up where I can't, or if you know something that I don't know. Everybody's really, really great about interacting and saying, hey, jumping in. Everybody steps up to the plate in this community. And, I really like it. I like it that it stays small. And hopefully I'll get back to doing videos soon, but I'm going to keep it up with the live streams. I really think these live streams are good because it gives you a chance to interact. I do tell people to get a hold of me by email. Sometimes by the time I get back to somebody or I read the email because on my phone, and then, oh, shoot, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, I didn't get to this person. I get hundreds of emails a day for different reasons. And so sometimes I can get back to you. Sometimes maybe the answer is too long and I want to get back to you on this live stream. Or maybe the answer is something that I think, wow, just like what happened to me in the emergency room. This is a great topic to talk about. So that's what I really like about the live streams is it gives me a chance to answer your questions. And even if it's off topic in the sense of maybe it had nothing to do with hospital stays, but you want to know something about residency, I'm here. And this gives me a platform to be able to answer your questions. And you guys have fun talking to each other and everybody with a common interest. So thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm actually going to shut up now so I can go and you guys can go. Have a wonderful evening. And as I always say, and I'll always end this with, the most important thing is to stay safe and stay informed, no matter where you are. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.